Welcome to the Just Pull the Trigger podcast.
We talk to people who have made the pivot, whether in business, career or life.
And find out what happens when you stop overthinking and just go for it.
In today's episode, we're chatting to Oscar Ford, our Google Ads expert. This is a slightly different episode as we deep dive into pay-per-click ads. Oscar talks about the importance of really knowing your numbers, where PPC works and where it doesn't, and the only metrics really worth focusing on. If you need a primer on pay-per-click, this one's for you. It's Just Pull the Trigger.
How did you get into all this stuff? Because we were just talking off camera and to me it's quite boring, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's kind of nerdy, quite technical, a lot of data and that sort of thing. Fell into it really. So I didn't, especially at the tail end of school, I was quite balanced between English and written stuff and maths. I didn't think I was good at maths and then became all right at it. So
Did you do A-level maths?
yeah.
It's a different ball game, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that was
I remember I did it
it
at GCSE, and then it's obviously everyone in the school does it, and then a lot of people did A-level and they dropped out within a month. They were like, this is just
Really?
different levels.
I wasn't ready for this.
No, exactly, yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So I think a lot of people at school, they go, oh, well, I'm terrible at science and I'm terrible at maths, so I'm going to become a writer or a journalist or whatever, and you have the same the other way. If you're okay at all of it, you just go, I've no idea. So I did politics, philosophy and economics at uni just to keep my options open, and a lot of the prime ministers do that degree. So people naturally went, oh, are you going to be a politician? Then I went, no, absolutely not. Please, no way.
I could see that. I could see it.
No way. That would be terrible.
You tell the truth too much. So
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's true. And so I was looking for work experience after university, and I ended up working it was a company that had various affiliate businesses. So affiliate programs are basically if I wanted to sell your stuff, so if you sold, I don't know, solar panel installs, I could drive you leads and charge you X% of the value. And you have affiliate programs for products and services and all sorts. So this company I worked at, they had lots of really successful businesses. They had a discount voucher business, a car rental comparison business, and a few others. So I went to work there and just learnt the ropes around marketing and advertising, and had never really paid much attention to the ads on Google before. And then I went there and they went, yeah, when you click those, it charges the advertiser some money for that click. And depending on the product category, stuff like business broadband, it might cost £25-30 to the business for the click. And this just blew my mind. I just never even thought about this. And so really learned a lot of PPC, Google Ads specifically, whilst there, and then left that business, tried a few business ideas myself, and was getting referrals from people going as a freelancer, just saying, oh, can you run my Google Ads account, please?
You weren't actually offering that as a service?
No.
You was just people that knew you or whatever, just going, oh, can you help me out?
Yeah, so then didn't really want to do that as my primary business. Was going, oh, I'll try these other things first, but you can't ignore it after a while if people are knocking on the door. So then started to turn it into an agency. So was working out in my parents' front room for about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer, and then just took out an office in Leicester and then grown from there. So yeah, we're a team of 5 now.
So did you start the agency before you worked with Ed?
So it was similar sort of time. I started working with Ed. So that's Ed Leake, who's kind of a pay-per-click specialist, and he's often in the top kind of lists of PPC experts.
Yeah, it's like
stuff.
top 20 Google PPC influencers, or if you want to call him that. I don't think you'd like me saying that, but he's always up there, isn't he? Always top 20 nerds. That's what we say. All right, mate.
Yeah, we'll send him this. His reaction. So yeah, at the time, I just wanted to sort of level up my skills really, and I thought, well, he looks like someone who knows what he's doing, a bit like you did at the time when you first met Ed. So started freelancing for him, and then just started hiring slowly as we kind of grew the work we were doing based on that really. And now I've been doing it for, well, my business is 10 years old, but yeah, been doing PPC for about nearly 15 years now, really.
And was there any? Did you ever think about SEO? I remember Ed always saying he doesn't like SEO because it's too, it's not transparent enough. Like you can charge someone £1,000 or whatever a month, and just be like, the results don't come in, right? Whereas PPC, it's just like, look, you've spent this, you've got this.
You can see whether it works straight away.
There's no hiding behind the physical data, you know.
Yeah, that's so true. I think they naturally go hand in hand. So I understand why a lot of agencies end up saying, well, if we're doing your pay-per-click, we should probably look at your SEO as well, because they both have different strengths and weaknesses. And if you kind of put them together and work them quite closely together, you can get really good benefits. But I think for me, we wanted to be right at the top of our game in that one channel. And I think when you're a small business working on a platform that's, a Google, $1 trillion company or something silly like that. So yeah, thousands of employees churning out updates all the time. I think just keeping on top of right at the cutting edge of the developments that they're making and the new stuff they're doing, it's a full-time job for multiple people as a small business. So I always felt, we could develop our specialism and take on more people who have other specialisms, but I wanted to stay quite focused on a few specific things really and do them really well.
I think from a business owner, hiring a company like a PPC company, when they're specialising in one area like PPC, rather than going, we do all these 5 different services, you do, there's an element of hesitation in that. And then but when you see someone who's say, no, this is all we do, there's a faith in that, I think. So I definitely think there's that's something that people are drawn to.
It's like it's a band member. If they go, I'll play the guitar, the bass, the drums, and I sing, right? But if you're just a guitarist, then you're in your head, you're sort of like, they're more likely to be a great guitarist.
Yeah, I think we were talking about the 10,000 hours before, weren't we? That 10,000 hours is focused in on one particular area, rather than like, I've done 2,000 hours over there, 500 there. It's a bit like, it's jack of all trades, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, that's very true. And I think for brands who are working with agencies or looking to work with agencies, I think that's quite an important consideration for them, because on the one hand, as you say, you want that deep specialist knowledge for channels that are really important to your business. So for PPC, for example, Google Ads might make up 30%, 40% of your income for a lot of e-com brands, and Meta might be slightly different metrics, but again could be a really big channel for you. So to get the most out of such an important channel, you want to work with the best out there for that thing. I think the downside to specialists, especially as you grow, is you can end up with loads of different relationships that you're juggling. And if you're a marketing manager who's tasked with managing all these channels, you might say, I'm losing the thread on all these relationships. And so I think sometimes that's a reason why brands go, I just want one point of contact where they can be consistent across all these channels. And that's where the more, not necessarily full service, but the more mixed kind of offering agencies, they sort of bring in an advantage at that point. The downside is, depending on who they are, they might not have the depth of specialism. They might be, we're amazing at website building, but actually we've just had a couple of our best meta ads people leave, and now we're a bit light on the ground in terms of skill set there. So it's quite hard to balance, really.
I imagine the bigger agencies are able to have a bit more depth in that respect, but obviously when you are small, like you say, 5 people, it is probably just best to just say we're this one way, rather than trying to sort of serve everyone, aren't you?
Probably a natural progression for an agency to have that growth. I know you're saying you're going to specialise in it, but if you've got bigger and bigger and bigger, do you find an SEO expert or something? It's a natural progression, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not, you can't.
That's your way of diversifying, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, and I think that's how a lot of agencies end up in that position, because they do exactly that. They go, can we sell more services to these happy clients that we have who are asking about these other things?
Yeah.
And then they figure out how to do that. And that's how you often end up with those large full service agencies who've gone through that route, but they probably started by building websites or doing SEO or whatever it is.
And like you said about marketing managers, if they've got like 5 different companies, they're trying to sort of almost get together and talk to one another, because there could be ones sort of not arguing, but like not necessarily in tandem with an element of marketing that's all the same, and they're, you know, it's very difficult to kind of get them to work together, isn't it? But if they're in the same building and in the same team, then it makes sense.
So if you owned a business, an econ business, would you? Let's say there's someone out there. I mean, we talked off camera. This is going to be a bit more of a Q&A sort of thing. If for small business owners, if there's a small business owner listening and he's looking to, it does no marketing, does he go with an umbrella company so that they do SEO, PPC, or does he go with the three specialists? So content or whatever, content, SEO, PPC. What would you, if you owned a business, small business, you were just starting out, what would you do?
Yeah, that is a really good question. And I think there's two factors really. I think one is with limited resource, you want to go give a particular channel the best chance of succeeding. So if you spread budget across 4 or 5 different marketing efforts at once,
Filter it down, right?
yeah, exactly. So pick 1, maybe 2 tops and say, right, we're really going to go for that and see if we can get it working. I think the other consideration then is who you've got access to, because I think there's about 25,000 marketing agencies in the UK, something like that. I was looking at these stats the other day, and then
That's a lot.
yeah, it is a lot, isn't it? I mean, that's from sort of tiny, probably one-person shops that looks like an agency up to, you know, hundreds of people. So there's a lot to choose from, very competitive. I think a lot of the time we look and sound the same. It's kind of hard to know. They've all got case studies, they've all got awards, and often that's
be a lot of like freelancers in that are just cold calling you on email.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Oh, you get it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's partly dependent on who can you find that you trust and maybe has been recommended to you, who you know is the real deal on a particular channel, because that's going to be better, even if they're specialists, than having, say, a specialist or a full service agency who talk a good game but don't actually deliver results.
We found that with I'm not going to name the company, but you remember the old website we used to use? They did everything, and it felt like a little bit they were just hiring anyone. You know, oh, this is our SEO expert, and it was just like, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, Kirsty 23 from, you know, Tyne and Weir can actually not do a good job, but it felt like they were all sort of like just university leavers and had not a lot of experience, but they were just they were doing it to a price, you know, charging us 500 quid, so they've got to, you know, charge this person who was doing it 250 and make their margin. Did they really care about the results? I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Yeah, that's I think that's a really good example, because that cuts to one of the heart of the challenges of within the agency sphere, and is also a challenge for brands when thinking about buying those kind of services, which is there's a lot of kind of uneducated buyers. Not in the sense of people just don't get it. It's just that it's quite hard to understand how much should I be paying for these services, and you know, what's the normal price range, because the range is huge. And often a lot of agencies and freelancers, they don't make their price very public, or you have to go and ask them first to find out, and that kind of thing. So you often find brands, they might not know the technical stuff of a particular channel like SEO or whatever. They just know, I know it's important and I need good results from it. I don't know how much I should be paying for it. I don't know what to expect. And so it becomes really difficult to choose a good partner for that kind of thing. So I think that makes it hard, because you go, well, if you pay too cheap, you're going to get what you pay for to an extent. But then a lot of brands, especially if you're just starting out, you know, budgets are tight. You can't necessarily afford the best talent for a particular specialism. So that does make it hard. There's no real easy answer to that. I think you either need to take a leap and invest in really good people, or sort of partially. I think I often advise, especially if you're early or starting out, at least learn the fundamentals of the marketing channel or that you're really focusing on. So SEO or Google ads or Meta ads. Spend a bit of time learning the basics, so you know good questions to ask,
Yep.
and you can kind of
You know who's not pulling the wool over your
Yeah,
eyes.
get a shark who's giving you all these details, and you're like, they sound like they're.
Well, I
they
mean,
know
you
exactly
could do
what
a
they're
you could do a watch a YouTube
doing. An hour of
YouTube, and then go,
research
yeah, well, okay, Jane, I'll do your meta ads, and just do a little boost and do it to an audience. And does it work? Who knows?
yeah, exactly
And
that.
charge her for your time.
Yeah, and I think the second related point to what you were saying around the kind of agency model in particular is getting really good people in who have that specialist knowledge is quite hard for agencies, because when they're trying to be really competitive on price, then they often will have some really senior people and then some junior people who are cheaper. And a lot of agencies get the balance wrong, where they hand the work over to a junior person who does it all and they can't really do a good job. That model can work as long as there's a more integrated setup, and because like any delivery of services, there's elements that are kind of a bit more basic, a bit more, we need to check this every day, we need to do these things, pull these numbers. But I think a lot of agencies, especially bigger agencies, sometimes get the balance wrong, and that seems to be where you get a lot of complaints. So people often talk about, oh, my agency wasn't very proactive, or they're not very good communicators, and it's because a problem would come up and the agency wouldn't be saying it to the brand first. If your agency's running a particular channel, you want them to say, as a heads up, we've had this problem, or the ad stopped running, or whatever, before you spot it.
Yeah.
Because if you spot it first, something's gone wrong, and then
has it? We had a few. We've had a few of that, haven't we? Just like, that looked like it stopped.
I think a lot of agencies are, their perfect customer is someone they just never hear from. So if something goes wrong, or they probably just, paper some cracks or whatever, and just keep taking their money. I think that's where I think probably a lot of small businesses would be worried about going into this sort of market, because there is probably a lot of people like that just going to take your money and not really care about the results.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that's where the agency world is moving more towards. At least the best agencies are going, we're partners with your brand, we're not just suppliers. Because exactly to that point, I think the world of marketing is a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of different components that all work together. You might be driving ads, but if the landing page you're driving to converts really badly, then that's a problem for the ads, not just the business as a whole. So I think, looking for someone who's going to be a partner and understand and get into the weeds of your specific business problems, and that are not just limited to the channel they're doing, is, I think, going to be more important. And I think having that knowledge of your business numbers makes it easier to understand if something's working or not. That's something we see, especially small business owners, fall down on a little bit, is not knowing how to judge if something's a success or not. And I think the better grasp you have on that, the more quickly you'll spot if it's working or not. So if you start with all your margin of your business, so okay, how much can I pay to acquire a customer before it stops being profitable? If you do the work to understand all that, then you've got a really clear idea about, well, if I start acquiring customers on any channel that's more than that, now it's starting to be unprofitable. And that gives you an easy way to tell whether it's working or not. If you start a new channel and you give it 2-3 months and you're acquiring customers at twice your profitable rate, then you're going, well, there's a lot of work to do here. Can we actually achieve that at all? And then you can at least interrogate the performance and the results, really.
You could actually look at that two ways, though, couldn't you? Because if you're happy to pay a certain amount to get a customer, depending on their lifetime value,
take the hit in the first one.
You might make no money out of your first order, or even lose a bit of money and still be happy with it. And again, I suppose that's industry to industry, right? But
yeah, that's so true. Yeah, there was, I think, and that's a really important factor, because I think a lot of brands, when they're starting out, they sort of go, I don't have enough data to understand lifetime value, or I just haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
But as you say, if you've got a really good handle on that, right, on average, customers order this many times, this is the value to the business over a lifetime, then you've got a huge advantage because, as you say, you can be more aggressive with how much you pay to get them in.
I think the only thing to think about with that is cash flow, because if you're going, oh yeah, I don't mind paying X amount over what I'm, our ROI to get a customer, but then all your other stuff in your business, it dents into your cash flow.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a different story.
And if you do know there is a lifetime value there, but they don't return quick enough.
Yep.
It's like, oh, they'll order again, but in 2 years' time,
Yeah.
you're like, well, that's no good to me, is it, really? Because I've forked out all this money at a lot, and then you're never going to get it back quick enough.
Velocity of the returning customer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think something to think about related to that, which I know we've talked about in the past as well, is from a cash flow perspective, look at your marketing spend and ways of extending the terms through that. So, paying your Google Ads bill with a credit card that's got good payment terms, maybe as a cashback reward. That's always nice. Yep. The other option is you can do monthly invoicing with, say, Google, and then you can, depending on how much you're spending as that grows, you can negotiate kind of a credit line. So you can say, right, well, for August, they'll invoice at the end of August, and then you get, say, 30 days, maybe 60, 90, depending on how much spend you've got and what you can negotiate. And as long as you manage it carefully, that can be a really great way of extending that, fixing that cash flow.
That depends on the person, I suppose, isn't it? It can be the worst thing they've ever done if they don't manage it properly.
Yeah, you don't want to...
I've got some extra 10 grand, I'm going to spend it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you definitely a big kind of note of caution on that, really.
Yeah.
You've got to be really on top of your numbers to do that.
So their businesses, sort of agencies, slightly going back a bit, that would be like, oh, I'm a PPC expert for e-commerce. I'm a PPC expert for, I don't know, another industry, like, construction or something like that. Is there people who go niche down even further?
Yeah. So you've got kind of... you've got full service and specialist, and then you've got specialist by industry or specialist by, I suppose, channel, I guess. So, so in our case, we primarily do pay-per-click across a few specific industries that we've got some really good experience in and we know works really well. You do get agencies that go, right, we just do maybe 3 or 4 services, or sometimes one service for construction or for plumbing or home services, sometimes that kind of thing.
So they'll do PPC, SEO and all that for the industry, rather than going, I do PPC for anything.
Yeah. And I think the advantage to doing that from an agency perspective is you can take learnings and apply them to other businesses, especially if you're focused on, say, local areas. If you're looking at plumbers or locksmiths or whatever, they're going to have a kind of a radius that they work to. So you can take a lot of the same structure and elements.
Just drag and drop on every other business, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think I've seen a few agencies doing that really effectively.
Do they... I've come across so my wife Jade, she's a permanent makeup artist. I know you've had contact with her, and
your eyebrows, is that what you do?
And these aren't
and she gets a lot of people, and I would imagine it's low hanging fruit because it's a niche market, and the actual product, the treatment, is expensive, right? The treatment is, depending on the person, 300, 400, 500 quid. So you get a lot of these companies come and go, I can get you clients for 100 quid a client, right? And if someone wants business and they're charging 400 quid, then 100 quid is no problem, right? So that's low hanging fruit to an agency, right? I guess.
Yeah.
So they're looking at business models, how much is the product? How much is it? Is it a service-based product that is, when the customer buys, it's, I don't know. I see a lot of it in dental practices, where I'll get your teeth done and it's 5, 6, 7 grand. The dentist's probably going to pay him £1,000 to get a client. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about a little bit. They're niching down into certain things.
Exactly. Niching down into like, I only do. I've just taken a previous guest, James Martin. He was saying like, he owns a wedding venue.
Yeah.
And he goes, I know my average order value is 50,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to pay X amount per click.
Yeah.
And the agency knows that, so they know that they can go out and spend and approach that kind of industry, because they know that there's the margin, and not just as a percentage margin, but physical, actual, tangible
As you
revenue.
say, you need to know that. Every industry needs to know, right, okay, Oscar, my wedding is £50,000. You don't go over £10,000 per wedding or whatever, you know?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's my budget. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think if you've got a higher value product, it gives you more to play with, especially. So with, say, Google, I think the same is true for Meta as well. The amount you pay for traffic goes up every year. It gets more competitive.
That's right. Yeah.
And Google bakes in inflation into their cost per click every year anyway. So behind the scenes, there's an inflationary rise in CPCs. So all else being equal, over time, you're going to pay more through both of those levers. And so if you're on a really low average order value product, for example, then you need to shift a lot of volume to make profit. And and I think it means that you've got to be really aggressive with keeping your cost per click down. And depending on your industry and your product, that's not always very easy or possible. I think agencies like the stuff that is, well, if we only get a few sales for that thing, then there's loads of money in the margin for it. The challenge with that bit is the higher value the product or service, the more people will compare, think about it, and it will take them a lot longer, and they'll go multi-platform. So it becomes harder to track. You get less data, especially conversion data, to optimize with. And it starts to, I mean, you go up the line, but you end up at the kind of B2B enterprise sales piece, which is, that might be a 6-month sales cycle. And it's Google, LinkedIn, maybe it's, people are searching on AI tools now, and you're going to have lots of touch points. Trying to get that data to understand, okay, how much value has each marketing channel contributed to that sale?
It's difficult.
It's really hard. Yeah. So I think you win on one front, and you have other challenges on the other.
So there are certain businesses that you kind of would say PPC doesn't really work for?
That is
think about it.
That's a really good question. I think from a product basis, you have 3 main levers for any product business on, say, Google, but applies to Meta and similar pay-per-click platforms as well, which is how much does it cost you to get the traffic, how well does it convert to sale, and what's the value of the sale. So how much you pay for the traffic will vary a lot by the platform you're running it on, but within a platform you're somewhat limited, because in Google's case it's an auction mechanism. You're kind of at least partly dictated by the price people are willing to pay for that traffic, combined with how well it's set up and all of those kinds of things. Your conversion rate and average order value you have more control over. So I'd say if you have a poor conversion rate, let's say you've got a 1% conversion rate on average, but your average order value is massive, and you make a good margin, that can work for your business. You could run ads and that's fine. If your average order value is low and your conversion rate is too low, you're going to struggle. So, and if your conversion rate is really high and your average order value is low, that also can work just fine as well.
When you asked the question, my initial thought was, if your margin is rubbish, like if you're in an industry where your margin is 5%, which some
after all said and done, that is definitely
there is industries out there that they might be selling something for 500 quid, but the margin is 5%. Is that just not going to work because Google are going to take a certain amount and it just goes?
Yeah, I think it'll be really difficult unless you've got really good lifetime value and actually we can stomach that as a first.
The lifetime value's got to come around really quickly. You can't go, okay, we've got lifetime value, but they order every 2 years. You'd be under in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. So I think really that's where it comes down to knowing your numbers, because you can work with those 3 metrics to say, okay, well, if I look at the keyword data and it says, okay, on average, I'm going to pay £3 for the click, and our average order value is this, and we make this much from that customer, our conversion rate needs to be, let's say 15%, and we're currently at 3%. You probably need to find a different source of traffic.
Channel,
because to make that jump on conversion rate is going to be pretty hard going. Other stuff that is difficult, I guess. I think there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think would do well, but can do well. Software, high-end services and things. You'd think, oh, will that work on sort of Google or Meta? But they can work really effectively in getting in front of, your ideal customer profile to make them aware of the problem your offering solves. I do think it's that hard thing of how do you justify the role that your particular channel has in the whole mix if they're going across loads of different platforms. That becomes challenging.
Do you find it like sometimes there's not enough search volume as well on certain things? I know, because I was thinking about asking that question. I thought, well, if there's no search volume, then surely their business is kind of not going to go anywhere anyway. But I guess that is a thing.
Yeah. So if you've got a startup would be a great example of that, or a new kind of entrant to a product category. So you invent some sort of amazing.
But that's better with Meta, surely.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
People don't know they want it until they see it, right?
Yeah, so exactly. You figure out who your customer is going to look like, and
where they're
you
going to be
get in front of them.
Yeah,
exactly, because Google is more of a it's people searching on Google, looking at search ads and shopping ads specifically. People who search on Google, they tend to be problem aware. They know, either they know the product they're looking for, or they know the problem they want to solve. So as you say, if you've kind of come in with a product or service that people aren't really aware,
they're not going to be searching for it.
Yeah. So you have to generate the demand from Meta and maybe YouTube as well, for example, and then eventually that'll filter through to people searching for that specific thing.
Yeah.
No, I was interested about that, because, like you say, someone new, as if there is a new product either to market, whether it's a completely new thing no one's never heard of, you've just got to go. There's a different marketing tact for however you want to get in front of people. Never really thought of it like that, but certain avenues just aren't going to work until a little bit further down the line.
Yeah.
I suppose also when you're going back to what works and what doesn't, it can depend. I mean, we've spoke about this as well. Like on the agent, if you're using an agency, what their costs are. Because if you're paying an agency $5,000 a month, but your budget is only $3,000 a month, right? That's a real big tough ask to make.
We kind of almost hit a little bit of that, didn't we, at one point?
Yeah.
Where we were, we hit a tough period, and we were cutting. As with a lot of companies, when their first thing to do is cut back on marketing, isn't it? And which is probably the counterproductive thing to do. But it was kind of the percentage that you were paying for your ads versus what you were paying the agency was just almost like comparable, and you're like, this is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I always don't know why I've got this number in my head, but it probably your budget needs to be 10 times what you're paying the agency to give yourself a fighting hope.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and that's why you'll see a lot of agencies talk about minimum spends. So they'll normally say, I mean, sometimes it's $5,000, sometimes it's a little bit less a month. And the reason for that is because of that. It's saying, well, if this is weighted, so 80% of your spend on this channel is on an agency fee rather than the actual ad spend, the work that ad spend has to do to give you a positive ROI overall is so high. So I think I suppose the balancing act is with a slightly lower spend that's on maybe the bottom end of what an agency will work to. So you're going, well, that's still quite chunky in terms of fee versus spend. If they can actually get results that are profitable and can scale, you're in a market that will allow you to scale, roll on 6 months, 12 months, you're suddenly in that kind of ratio that does make more sense. I think it's, it comes back to that understanding your numbers of saying, this is the route, this is kind of a co-authored plan with the agency of where we need to be, at least roughly by these points. And if we're not there, or if we're way off, it's not going to work in terms of as a kind of partnership, really.
And so when you talk about scale, I mean, again, this is all stuff that we talk about personally, is that, we've got to a point where, okay, we're spending 10 grand a month on Google, and I go to you, the ROI is great. And I go, okay, cool, spend 20. Because if we can do the same thing and spend 20, then great. But there is ceiling levels or bumps in the road where Google won't allow you to spend that without the ROI dropping, correct?
Yeah, spot on. So there's a few different factors in that. I think you get data from Google that tells you roughly what your search impression share is and how often you're appearing kind of in the top section of ads for search, for example. And that'll give you a rough idea about, at any given time, this is how many people who are searching for keywords and, searches on Google that are relevant to the stuff that you sell. The more there will, for any market, any product service, there will be a cap on that based on your kind of general market size and also how much you're willing to pay for that customer. So when you start to hit that point of you're sort of saturating the market to a certain stage, one of the main limiting factors is going to be, depending on how you're bidding, your target cost per acquisition or your target return on ad spend. Because if you suddenly turn around to Google and you say, at the moment, we're willing to pay, for the sake of argument, £30 for a new customer. Actually, we're happy to pay 60. Suddenly, that extra inventory that has been unavailable to you because Google's bidding algorithms have gone, that's going to cost too much to get, that person through as a customer. Suddenly, that might have created the opportunity to say, actually, I can get that person for £45, and that's within the new budget. I think normally that's not a great strategy because you end up with the additional spend, the return on the ad spend for that additional spend is quite low because you're suddenly paying a big premium to capture that final section of market. I think the better route at that stage is to start to go, how can we generate more demand elsewhere that will filter through to grow market searches, either for our brand search in Google or for relevant stuff. For example, we're going to run a YouTube campaign, or we haven't really done much on Meta, or we're going to look at Microsoft, or we're going to look at doing some more email partnerships or something like that. Just so you're saying we want to get in front of more potential customers who fit our ideal customer profile, but maybe aren't aware of our business yet. And then once they're aware of our business, they might come through and search on Google or wherever. The other factor in that is that Google, it's not really in Google's interest for any advertiser to kind of win every hand, so to speak. Yeah. So it is an auction mechanic, but also they want to give enough to every advertiser to keep them spending on advertising, because that's
if
their incentive.
So if someone's losing all the time, they're going to go, sod this, I'm not bothering anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why another element of why it becomes very hard beyond a certain point to actually, capture all available market share, really.
Right.
Yeah, because if your ROI is there and you want to grow your company, if that was the case, everyone would just be going, I mean, I think I've said to you, like, some stupid number. Yeah. Well, if you could keep the ROI, spend £1 million a month, and that's just not how it works. So,
because they've got to serve every one of their advertisers.
Well, there's only a certain amount of search for whatever terms you're bidding on, and they've got to not be fair, but keep everyone happy.
Yeah. And I think there's other ways you can think about that on a slightly sort of medium and long term as a business to work around that and kind of grow your share of the market. If you can increase average order value or lifetime value, or sell other adjacent products or services, then you can spend more to acquire the customer. So now you've got an advantage over competitors. Maybe you can pay 20% more than everyone else in the market. You're going to, you've got an advantage in the auction. You're going to capture more clicks. The other route is to expand. So international expansion, for example. So you say, right, we've done really well in the UK. The US fits our profile, or Germany fits our profile in terms of potential customers. We've got the logistics to do it. Let's trial that, and then you go, okay, well, we'll expand into other markets rather than just into our home base.
I think just talking about this, if you were someone who's just starting out and you had, I'm going to do some ads, I've got 500 quid, £1,000 a month, you can see how it's off-putting to people, can't you? Because there's so many metrics that you need to think about. Just us all sitting around, and we've been doing it for 10 years plus or whatever, coming up with these ideas or coming up with suggestions. Like you say, you could think about lifetime value of the customer. You can think of upselling. You can think of expansion. The person who's just starting out, or a small business owner, probably not really thinking about this.
No, totally agree. And I think, and you're absolutely right. And I think that's why often these platforms are so intimidating for people, and it makes it hard because there's this kind of valley of despair between just starting, saying I don't understand this platform, and this agency I've just spoken to want to charge me £5,000 a month. Where's the middle ground? I think if you work on some assumptions for your how much you can afford to pay, so to do that you're looking at, you guys know this, you're looking at gross margin, what are my overhead, all of that kind of stuff. And I think you can probably safely assume initially, if you're being a bit conservative, you can say, I'm just going to assume that one person buys once and they never buy again. If they buy again, it's a bonus. If you work on that assumption, you can work back and say, well, that's how much at a max I can pay.
Worst case scenario, basically.
And then you can start to look at the platforms. And even if you started with a small spend on, say, Meta, you'd say, right, well, I'm getting traffic to the website at 80p a click. The conversion rate is 3% or whatever. And this is my order value. How does that sit with the sort of simple workings that I've done? Oh, okay, I need a slightly higher conversion rate, or the CPC is a little bit too high. And you can kind of work it that way. And I think that'll give you a bit more confidence to go, this creative set that I've tried in Meta is quite effective, actually is driving profitable acquisition. Let's try a few more variants on that same theme. So, you might start saying, okay, what about, I don't know, before and after images, or versus ads, or static imagery versus video, those kinds of things. It depends on your own capabilities as a brand. But I think it's just having that comfort of just understanding there's only really a few metrics that really, really matter from a business point of view in terms of, am I acquiring these customers profitably or not? And or is it close? If it's close, then you go, right, I can optimize these things to make it work.
Or like you say, you could stomach it and think, if you're selling a consumable or something like that, then they're going to come back next month, or maybe even be a subscription service. You don't know, do you? But I could certainly see how it's really sort of like intimidating for someone who's just starting out, or just going into that sort of market, or looking for another sales funnel.
Yeah, definitely.
I was going to say, talking of like sort of people just starting out, I've heard like people talk about Google PMax, Performance Max, and it's kind of like a, is it Google's like AI version of sort of
youth?
Yeah. I mean, is there any merit in that? Is there, or is that kind of not really something that's kind of applicable?
Yeah. So Google has changed a lot of their campaign formats quite drastically over the last, 5 years, but 10 as well. So Performance Max is kind of a bundling of inventory. So if you run a Performance Max campaign, you can access search, shopping, discovery, Gmail, YouTube, and display. I think that's all of them.
So that's most of them?
Pretty much, yeah. So
it's obviously going to be some that you're missing out a few key ones there. Are you?
Probably, yeah.
No, I mean, no, not from like you forgetting, but just like if you're going with PMax, then but you're not going to go with the other way. I don't know, you're missing out on some real the big one. When you got a certain, you go with the standard choice, you get all the ticks, and then the ones you really want are on the platinum.
Oh, right, yeah. So to that point, I think because it's a bundling, it makes it easier for a brand to access different inventory and the campaign to kind of mix and match different stuff to get you in front of customers at different stages of the buying journey. The downside is what we find is search and shopping are the kind of bread and butter for e-commerce brands generally. It's the highest quality inventory. It will give you the best chance of actually getting people.
It's search with intent, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. So sometimes if you run PMax, you kind of, it'll do shopping, but then it might also do some video and display. And actually, depending on the quality of your assets and the level of complexity of your marketing sort of stack, it can actually be inefficient because Google's serving 20% of your budget on the display network that's not really doing much for you, and it's capping your spend on shopping. Whereas actually, if you just did pure shopping, you'd get 100% spend there, and it'd be much better. I think there are, especially for if you're starting out, one of the advantages of something like Performance Max is it's less intimidating because it's a bit easier to set up. It's one campaign to think about.
Could they do that on their own, or do they need someone like yourself to do it?
Yeah, you could do it on your own. Yeah.
So if they wanted to, it's sort of like someone doing it for them to a certain degree.
Yeah. And I think
toe in the water sort of.
Yeah.
Because if you've only got 500 quid to spend a month, let's say, not really going to do it for an agency, are you?
No. I think your best bet is to set it up yourself. I mean, if you had 500 quid, I'd probably be more inclined to run a shopping campaign for maybe all your inventory. If you've got a real difference in, let's say, product price, you might just do it for you might exclude your £1 accessories or something. But a pure shopping feed it's that thing about it will give you, for a small budget, it will give you more focus on that.
So,
top quality inventory.
You just hook up your feed to your products, and you don't need to look at any keywords or anything like that for shopping. It will just search on the product that is listed. Yeah.
So you'll need to set your budget and your kind of bid strategy.
Yeah.
So if you're just starting, going back to the kind of knowing your numbers thing, I think if you've got an idea of, say, your target return on ad spend that you're willing to get, which is if your return on ad spend is, say, 500, so 5x or 500% is sort of noted in both ways. It means for every pound you're spending on marketing, you're getting £5 back in revenue. So if you say, right, well, at a 5 times ROAS, we know that's profitable or thereabouts, you could set that as your initial bid strategy on that campaign and then monitor it closely. There are lots of kind of levels of complexity to that. We would play around with different things. We'd experiment. We might use manual in some cases for different brands. We might use maximize conversion value for a bit, depending on the campaign and the context. But I think as a really simple starting point, that would probably work. And then you just keeping a close eye on it to see, are those assumptions I started with any good, or is it just converting like absolutely just so badly, or is it doing better than I expected as well? And then can I scale up a bit based on that?
So AI,
and
where does it fit into all of this? And from a sadistic question, is it going to affect your business? Is it going to help you? Every time we speak to anyone, it's always, look, the people that are going to benefit this, but people are going to lean into it rather than just bury their head in the sand and go, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. I think it's a topic on everyone's mind at the moment, and I'd be interested to hear how you think it will affect sort of e-commerce brands and operators and small business operators as well. But in our industry, it's going to have a significant effect. Sam Altman, the boss of OpenAI, came out and said 90% of marketing functions will be handled by AI. He didn't put a time limit on it. A lot of billionaire predictions are often wrong, and they bury the ones that are wrong. But it definitely makes you sit up and take notice when someone who's kind of right at the coalface, so to speak, is saying that. So I think what's interesting to me is the adoption curves for things have gotten faster and faster. So Google's adoption curve, then you had mobile phones. If you see them on a graph, the mobile phone adoption curve was much quicker than, the search engine one. And then they were predicting. And then AI just feels like within 2 years, everyone from a 17-year-old at school to your mum is using it for different functions, and that tells me, I'm like, my mum's using it for travel itineraries and this and that, and asking it, about just all sorts of different topics.
But
and you go, this is crazy.
It's crazy topics. It's every part of life. That it's the biggest search engine there is.
I think there's next, like what people are using it for at the moment is to automate stuff that could have been done digitally. That's how I look at it. So you can go create me a. We were talking earlier on, just for I was doing it for a laugh. I put a photo of myself and said turn it into a Simpsons character, right? And it was literally dead on, right? Find it for me. It's overtaken Google because I don't really use Google that much anymore. I'll type into ChatGPT or even just talk to it. It's got that chat function now. It's ridiculous. It's like you're talking to your mate.
Yeah.
I know people that use it for like therapy, and I've not therapy, but I've asked it, if I've got maybe how you might have to speak to an employee about something, and it gives you this answer that's just spot on, to be honest.
And I think that is it's exploded in use case. I think it feels a bit like the Wild West at the moment because actually there's lots of things that are probably you should pause about thing because it's still these platforms are owned by mega corporations and a lot of them are playing fast and loose with the data a lot of the time. And the regulation's starting to catch up, but it's always very slow. So I think people should kind of go,
be a bit wary.
Yeah, should I use it for this? And also, how as a business user, kind of thinking, well, how do we get our data to be kind of ready for AI in terms of structured in a way that we can easily interrogate it and also easily anonymize it, for example. If I, as an agency, for example, want to find some trend data from a set of client data, I'm not going to put I'm going to need to anonymize it. I'm not going to just chuck a load of client data into a random tool and just hope for the best. So it's just not, it's not the right thing to do. So it's figuring out, okay, how do I anonymize this and then interrogate the numbers so I get the...
How do I anonymize this in ChatGPT before I upload it to ChatGPT?
Don't worry about it. Just put it straight in.
Bring it on. I'll look after it.
Yeah. But I think... So I had an interesting conversation with an SEO expert called Simon Small, and he was explaining that in the early days of search engines, people used to search in full sentences and in quite long queries.
Right.
And then Google basically trained us over the years that you don't need all these extra words. You can
type in Nike trainers or something, rather than I want some Nike trainers, where do I buy them?
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
What you say to ChatGPT.
It's gone right back the other way, which is kind of...
Please and thank you at the end and all that stuff isn't it? Someone said that there was a guy from OpenAI said that people saying please and thank you costs us millions of extra pounds in the search that we have to sort of do around it.
That's mad. I think it's worth it for when the AI takes over, they might spare us.
Oscar was really kind to me back in the day.
I won't slaughter you. But no, I mean, I think this is what I was saying. Like digitally, it's easier to digest because you're going to do it anyway. It's just a quicker thing. But when you talk about AI, you are also talking about, as crazy as it sounds, robots coming into society. Will downstairs look like? Will there be any humans in 10 years? Will there be any humans downstairs, or will it be just robots packing the shelves? Who knows? I think that's the next thing that might happen really quickly, and people don't think it's going to happen really quickly. At the moment, it's just made everything that's normal to us just a bit easier and a bit faster. You don't really need the design tools anymore, do you? You just go on, the design tools like Canva, they're integrating AI in it. You just tell it what you want and boom, it does this amazing design that, in 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where, to your point, is spot on of saying, I think at this stage, it's about using the tools, seeing what they're good at, really building it into your workflows to really understand where is it doing outputs that are is as good or better than I could do myself, or much quicker. Because it's changed so much in a year. The stuff it can do now that's actually pretty good versus before is quite different. So I think that's the best way for business owners to do it, is just to use it as part of their workflow, to start going, okay, pick a tool that's easiest for you to use, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. Just start going, okay, well, I'll see what kind of the output looks like for that. Or I think the other key thing that's really important that I've been thinking about a lot is what not to lose as well. If you're quite deliberate about, okay, for my LinkedIn posts, I don't want to sound like the kind of mean average of the world's generated AI content. I want to sound like me and authentic. And in a world of AI slop, as it's sometimes called, of content like AI generated videos, does that mean that actually creative, story driven videos start to stand out more, and it pushes brands the other way? So I think being just quite deliberate about, I'm going to use it for that, I'm not sure about that, maybe, and I don't want to use it for those things, is quite a good thing to think about as well.
I think it's also, like you say there, you don't want to, especially like taking LinkedIn as your example, there's going to be plenty of people that put up AI generated posts and stuff like that, and things that you want to say, you want to be like yourself, and it might be a more polished version of yourself, but you want to be more like yourself. And with videos, and we were talking about people with AI, it will probably have this sort of 180 or 360, whatever you want to say, where people want to be more connected to humans in that respect. So I think also with AI video, people might just go, oh, that's AI video. So maybe you might find that the rough and ready videos people might react to better. There might be some merit in being a bit rough around the edges.
I mean, I use it to post, and I'll tell it what I want it to write for an Instagram caption, and it's brilliant. Right, but I also read it and go, I'd never come up with that, and sooner or later people are going to see that. Maybe not at the moment, but people are going to see that. And I think you're right, it's going to come round full circle. So maybe the story type of posting, where it's just like, oh, hi, we're here, or whatever, and it's not cut and it's a bit rough and there's the sound in the background.
That's
or whatever.
genuine, rather than like, you're going to have all this sort of fancy stuff coming out. You go, well, how much of that is real? How much of that is just an AI?
I hate the, when someone's created an avatar, you can just tell it's an avatar. It's not like, it's so far anyway, it's like, you can tell it's a picture of someone and their face is like
the subtle way it moves is a bit disconcerting.
Well, sometimes the mouth moves and the sound isn't quite like the same. But I think it will come full circle. I heard Gary Vee the other day say something about, he thought that with the AI revolution, society will be so digitalized that people will start businesses in the future, maybe even now, just, I'll go for a walk with you for 50 quid for an hour and we'll just have a chat. And I think people will I think that's actually not a bad idea. If you want to walk for an hour, people are
going to crave connection on a human to human
level.
Quite
dystopian, really, isn't it?
It is a bit, it is,
Yeah, I think that point about story is critical there, because I had a really interesting conversation yesterday, because I was working on a few case studies for ourselves as an agency. They're always really hard to write. And so I went, I'll see how, I was using Gemini in this case, I'll see how they come up with it to a specific structure. And the output was really good. But I was rereading it and went, it's good, but it really lacks a bit of oomph. And I was talking...
Spelling mistakes.
No.
Spelling mistakes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it doesn't sound like me. I spelled it all correctly. But I think it was that, if you're really clear on who you're speaking to and the main thread of what's the key bit of information for them to take away here, the format somewhat doesn't matter. You could have a really, really good story and it could be an AI generated kind of mad video and it will do really well. Or you could have a shaky user generated video, but the story's so strong and it really speaks to a pain point, and that does really well as well. I think it was an interesting insight for me. It was kind of, as long as you don't lose that of focusing on, okay, who's my customer? What problem are we solving? how can I speak to that in whatever format it is, it's a lot more likely to do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, get those key bits right and to your voice, and then everything around it will just kind of, if that's more polished than AI, then that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it saves me time,
Yeah.
and it looks good, and it does the job, sort of thing. Yeah.
I think going back to your point about asking us where we think from an e-commerce point of view it's going, we've spoke to a few people as well, and they're sort of saying that, and I think we've kind of approached you about the whole ChatGPT, people searching in there, you know, with the guitar strings thing, people are going to be using that platform for, I've got a Fender Stratocaster, I want some electric guitar strings for me, what's the best thing for it? You can't plug that, you can't really type that into Google at the moment. You put that into ChatGPT, they're going to be going to searching the web, finding the thing, going, and there'll be like ChatGPT Pay, where they'll
ads.
well, no, this is how I think, you know, where they work, that you won't really have a front-facing website necessarily. You know, there could be an element.
You'll have
Your ChatGPT go, I've just bought those for you.
It'll be an AI agent, like a
shopper.
a Siri, but with your credit. You might sit with your credit card and go, okay, can you buy me a set of Ernie balls from Strings Direct and send them to my home address? Done.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a crazy thought, isn't it?
By the way, how shit is Siri in comparison to all that?
It was the first thing. It's the same thing, isn't it? It just didn't work.
But like, Apple's at the forefront of technology. You'd think they'd have a good AI. It's dog shit, isn't it? Though in comparison,
You could say that about anything. You know.
Well,
you know,
yeah.
Blockbuster Video. Let's go down that road. Come on, lads.
I think on the search front, because you're right, and I was looking at, so Rand Fishkin, he's a marketer, he's an American marketer, but he does a lot of kind of data presentations on usage for Google versus kind of the LLM model. And in 2 years, I think in the US, it was showing the sort of traditional search engine searches. It was desktop data, but it was very flat. It was kind of around the 90% mark. And then the LLM market, so ChatGPT and all the rest, went from about 8% to about nearly 40 in 2 years, which is, you know, as an adoption curve, it's really, really fast. What was interesting is at the moment, I think partially because it's been hidden, Google's put AI results into its own browser, or its search engine. So it kind of obscures, it's not a direct switch. There's some people who are still using Google for the AI results. But it's interesting to me that there's maybe an element of people are using both for different functions at the moment, and whether people will switch more or not, I don't know. I think ChatGPT are going to have to monetize soon, so they'll either build their own ads engine or do an affiliate model or something. So we need to be ready for that. Google's just launched AI mode recently in the US and now just recently in the UK. So for certain campaign types, Performance Max, broad match keywords on search with AI mode enabled, you can start to serve ads in the AI overviews on Google, which is interesting as well. So we're starting to do some testing on that. I think they always launch it too early and then you go, it doesn't work so well. Yeah, they don't give you enough data to work with and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's where it's going. So that is going to be a big change, I think.
Do you know what? The two, from a positive point of view, I think there's opportunity here where things like this happen. There's always opportunity, right? The opportunity to me is, okay, you're right. I think ChatGPT ads are coming, and going on historically, when people launch ads, they should, for a couple of years at least, be cheap, right?
That's true, yeah.
Right. So they're going to be cheap. What's going to happen in Google then? They're going
to take all the money away from Google, basically.
Well, Google are going to have to drop their prices surely, because Google have had it their own way for
They've
years.
been king of the castle, haven't
There's
they?
been no competition. Now all of a sudden they've got a big hitter that's a competition. So that's, to me, hopefully we do ChatGPT ads, we get more business from that, and also our business with Google stays the same, but our cost per click goes down.
Yeah, that's such a great way of thinking about it. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they've enjoyed, in most markets, 90% of the search engine market for, 20 years, probably?
Look at Bing. We use Bing with you, don't we?
Yeah.
And it's like...
Pretty small.
It's percentage.
It's 10%.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
It's not even that,
5%.
is it?
Yeah, it's small. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, that wasn't as boring as I thought it was going to be.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. But thank you for coming on,
It's
mate.
been
thanks, guys. Thanks for
really
having me.
interesting. I think even though you kind of think you know about PPC or certain elements, it's been a real sort of eye opener and a good.
And if anyone wants any help with PPC and wants to reach out to you, is there like website that they can go to or anything like that?
Yeah, so probably best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I try and post videos and kind of around some of the topics we talked about. And so, yeah, you can find me on there. It's Oscar Ford, and my agency is called Annuncia, so it's anuncia.co.uk. So, yeah, if you want some PPC support or if you just want some advice, happy to chat about it.
Lovely. Thanks for coming on, mate. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.